What if I told you that you could grow bigger and more productive plants that required less water, were more resistant to disease and pest issues, and that also attracted beneficial pollinators and insects? Well, I'm guessing that you probably wouldn't believe me because it sounds like gardening magic. And I recently listened to an interview of a lady named Vlynn talking about her experience with electroculture gardening. And I was brand new to the topic. I had never heard about it, but apparently it's a very hot topic on the internet right now. A lot of people are saying that it doesn't work. A lot of people say that it does work. There's very conflicting information. And I heard this interview with Vlynn and I was so amazed. I was actually able to book an interview with her so that she could teach how it works, show her results that she's gotten in her garden, and just help you get started because it literally is a game changer. She has pepper plants that have thousands of peppers on them, an okra plant that's over 14 feet tall, and a lime tree that's producing limes all year long when it really should just produce during one season. And the results are literally incredible. And so please watch to the end. There's literally so much great information that she shares. And I just know that you're going to love this interview as much as I initially did when I first heard her. And I'm so incredibly blessed that I was able to get an interview with her here on my YouTube channel. So let's get started with the interview. So today I'm meeting with Vlynn from electrofreedom.com, and she's going to go over electroculture gardening and her success with it. I am so brand new to this and I'm so excited to learn with her, but excited to teach you guys this awesome new gardening, actually old gardening technique.
Very, very old, actually.
I love when the first interview I actually heard you even like related it back to the Bible, which is like so interesting to me because I feel like whatever God has created for us to use means that it works.
Yes, most definitely. I integrate sacred geometry with electroculture, which has had absolutely amazing results. But a little background, basically, I used to run a very large hotel in Savannah. We're just south of Savannah now. And of course, you know, the whole world changed and I left my job and we sold our house and we moved about an hour south. We got 3 acres and, you know, we set up a little homestead and it was great. I fully intended on, you know, growing my own food. I'd only just done container backyard gardening. I'd previously had a 1/4 acre. I moved to 3 acres. So it was a big change. A lot of it's pond, which is great. I have a natural water source. But I put in my gardens and I got some chickens and I got some ducks and I was really excited. And then everything died. My chickens got absolutely decimated by predators. My ducks, the same thing. It was devastating. And I mean, my gardens were okay. You know, like I ordered compost from a local place and they did all right. I grew a couple tomatoes. I grew a couple green beans. Like, no, it wasn't bad. I felt it was okay for my first in-ground garden. But I certainly wasn't sustaining my family on it at all. And my husband is a veteran, retired veteran. He had done 21 years in the service and about halfway through, he'd had to have major brain surgery. He stayed in. It's a whole crazy story. And he was on so many pills and we were dealing with PTSD and anger issues and all kinds of things. And then he had a heart attack. And I told him, I said, we have to make a life change. We have to get you off all the big pharma drugs. Everything that you take it makes it worse. I mean, nothing makes it better. Everything's getting worse. Like every day I'm afraid you're going to die. Literally, I'd wake up every morning just grateful to God that he was still alive next to me because I never knew. And having that constant worry was terrible. It was like being back when he was deployed all over again, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So we do a number of podcasts. We actually do a total of like 12 shows a week.
Wow.
Yeah. I do 2 shows Monday through Friday. And then we do a show on Saturday. I do a show on Saturday and then we do a show on Sunday. My husband and I. So anyway, it's a lot. But in research for one of our podcasts, I was digging into Tartaria, the lost world of Tartaria. And I found Antiquitech, and it was a completely tangential thing. And I started digging into it and I came across electroculture. I was like, well, what is this? And I looked into it and people were like, oh, this has been around for millennia. People have been using electroculture for thousands of years. 3,000 years, at least, as far back as they can trace.
Mhm.
So I was like, well, that's really easy. It's really simple. You take natural wood, you wrap copper wire around it, you stick it in the ground, and your plants grow huge, supposedly.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, at this point, I was willing to try anything because I was absolutely dead set on growing all of our food because I wanted us to go all natural, all pure, get my husband off of all, processed everything, just try and get us as healthy as possible. So I started doing a lot of research into it and looking into it. And I found, a lot of people were like, oh, it's a hoax. It's some new age thing. And I was like, okay, well, if new age is millennia old, then okay. No. So I was like, all right, you have no idea what you're talking about. You're just poo-pooing things, right? I don't even listen to those people. So I was like, well, the best way to do it is to try it myself. And at the same time, because I listen to all kinds of things, I was listening to a podcast about crop circles. And one of the ladies that had done the original research on crop circles said that they are actually frequency pulses that come up out of the ground. And the plants that grow inside crop circles grow 40% bigger, and they're pest resistant and they're drought resistant. And the seeds they produce have the same qualities. And I was like, well, Electroculture supposedly does the same thing. If I combine the two, and then of course the crop circle is the biggest part, is that all the crop circles grow in a Fibonacci sequence in a spiral, which is sacred geometry. So, all right, well, if I combine the two, if I combine Electroculture and the Fibonacci sequence, like a crop circle, what'll happen? Might as well try it. So I did. So I have I basically cut my garden in half and made a chicken chute in the middle. We rebuilt our flocks as well. So I have two separate gardens, 20 by 20 feet each. And I built out the Fibonacci sequence electroculture structures. So electrocultures, you just literally take natural wood and you wrap copper wire around it. If you're in the north, and of course, because it's millennia old, it works on essentially a flat earth premise, right? So if you're in a place where the ground freezes in the winter for a long time, like you get a significant amount of snow, then we consider that to be in the north, and you wrap it clockwise, meaning when you turn the antenna clockwise as the copper wraps around it. And then if you're in the south, like I am, where you get very little snow and your ground does not freeze, then you wrap it counterclockwise. So again, turning the antenna counterclockwise. So I did that, and I made these huge, because I have 3 acres, lots of trees. So I made these huge antennas. I mean, 6, 7, 8 feet, sometimes even taller, 12 feet tall, 15 feet tall. And sometimes I have one in the back that's 25 feet tall now, but my initial start was like 12 feet tall, dependent on where it was. And I built them out in a Fibonacci sequence, and everything literally exploded. I put seeds in the ground, and 40 days later, I had green beans that were twice the size of my hands.
That's so amazing.
It was insane. I planted asparagus, first year asparagus, which is really skinny. And I had some asparagus from the year before. So I had a couple second year asparagus, but mostly first year asparagus. And my first asparagus, while it was skinny, was 6 feet tall.
Wow.
6 feet tall. I had to cut the bottom foot off because it was woody, but I had 5 foot of asparagus to eat. I mean, that fed the family in one meal.
Yeah.
My peppers, my poblano peppers, are big enough to stuff. Some of my banana peppers, like I stuff them with hamburger and rice. My green peppers, even before they start turning colors, because all green, all peppers they all start as green. Sweet peppers, they start as green and they turn to yellow, orange, red, just depending on how they are. Even before they start to turn, they're still, just gigantic, twice the size of a normal pepper.
Yeah.
And they hadn't even started turning colors yet. It was crazy. And the peppers did really well this year. Unfortunately, my tomatoes did not do well this year. Honestly, I over pruned them for the heat that I did not. I expected the heat, but not the way it was. The heat was so intense that the tomatoes just failed. Now I'm going to start all over with tomatoes. But my green beans were insane. My okra just grows like crazy. My okra's 14 feet tall. It's higher than my chicken enclosure.
Oh my gosh.
I really have to like pull it down or get a ladder to harvest it. And I will have 2 and 3 okra fruit growing on one stem at the same time. So
Wow.
when I'm harvesting okra, like I'm going out every day and getting enough okra for my family for a night.
Yeah.
Every single day I go out to my gardens and I pick enough food for a meal for a night. My eggplants, I have eggplants on. It's a great year for eggplants. My eggplants are huge. They're, 18 inches long and big and wide and juicy. My
Yeah.
cucumbers went crazy. I put up 30 jars of pickles over the summer. And then my Tabasco pepper, I've one Tabasco plant that just got absolutely huge. I have another one that kind of was shaded out for a while and I moved it. And it grows really big, fat Tabascos. But this
Wow.
one that got really huge, it has all these branches on it. And every branch now is almost 9 feet long.
Oh my
And
gosh.
the entire pepper plant has over 1,000 peppers on it. And they're still going. They're still going.
Wow.
My lime tree produces year round. So I have limes right now that are ready to harvest in October. Usually limes are ready in like February. And I have flowers coming up right now for new limes that I'm going to be picking in February.
That is so amazing.
It's absolutely wild. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you. And the benefits of it, of this all natural food, of course, my grocery bill is negligible. And to be able to say that in this economy is, well, I can't say it's negligible. It's about the same as it was 2 years ago, and I buy about a quarter of what I used to buy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, because I don't buy produce. I don't have to. I walk out to my gardens.
Right. And I think that so many people that don't have very much space, they're so worried about even like the thought of trying to be reliant on themselves because they feel like they can't make it happen in a small space. And you're telling us you have one pepper plant that has thousands of peppers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even in container gardening. So I make antennas of all sizes. And it started out, I was teaching people how to do this on my Saturday podcast called Freedom Gardens, which is on Rumble. Although we're going to start putting it on YouTube, I believe. But it's, I was like, you all should try this. Just try this yourself. And a lot of people did. And they were like, this is amazing. They had very similar results to what I had. And then some people were like, well, I live in an apartment, or I've never been able to grow anything, or I can't find natural wood, or I can't find copper, or can you just make me a magic plant one? Cause I'm lazy. Got a lot of that. Can you just make a magic plant one? Like that's what they started calling them. So I call them electroculture or electro freedom antennas, right? Freedom to grow your own food.
Right.
It's really important.
Yes.
But energy is everywhere, right? The electroculture and the way I make them is a little different than the way other people make them, because I integrated different aspects of electroculture. So there's a regular electroculture antenna, which looks like this, right? It's a piece of natural wood and it has copper wire wrapped around it. Okay. Most electroculture antennas, basically the wire ends at the top of the antenna. All right. Oh. But then there's another thing called a Luigi coil. Okay. That you can put, a lot of people put them, and it either gets bigger from, bottom to top or top to bottom. And a lot of people put them separately in their gardens, in their plants. You'll get fancy little things that you put in there that it's all copper. Okay. And they'll, people will stick them in their pots and whatnot. And I think they look pretty, but it does a similar thing. Mm-hmm. The electroculture harnesses positive ions. The Luigi coil harnesses negative ions, I believe. Might be the reverse of that. Science is not my thing. Results are my thing. Okay. Yeah. So I was like, well, what if I incorporated that as well? So I made my electroculture antennas and I made a Luigi coil at the top. It's very simple, right? I basically just keep the spiral going. And I can also make a Fibonacci coil at the top as well, which, it just spirals around this. So a Luigi coil or a Fibonacci coil. It basically amplifies the end. And what it does is it harnesses the excess energy from the environment around us, which is everywhere. Energy is everywhere, indoors, outdoors, doesn't matter.
Right.
And it deposits that energy into the soil. So you're basically putting light into your root system, right? You're putting extra ions into your root system.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you've ever had a kind of a big thing right now is hydrogen water, like extra hydrogen water, right? Or
Oh,
extra
mhm.
oxygen water. It's almost the same thing, but for, light and soil. You're
Okay.
just putting extra energy into your soil. Your plants need more than just water to grow. They need all the nutrients in the soil. So
Mhm.
if you do for outdoor gardening, then it's pulling, because of course you use bigger antennas in outdoor gardening. So it's pulling more energy from higher up in the atmosphere and depositing it further out
Mhm.
into your whole garden. If you're just doing in a container, then it's still pulling a good amount of energy and just depositing into that pot. Okay.
Okay.
So you're adding energy to your soil, making your plants, your root system grow really strong. And then at the same time, these attract pollinators. So my yard is full of dragonflies and butterflies and bumblebees, honeybees.
Aw.
I've got pollinators all over the place, and they sit on these things all day long, and they hop from the plants to the plants. Like I'm looking for this beehive. I know I have one somewhere on my property because I had a whole slew of honeybees in my cucumbers every single day.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
I mean, it was just amazing.
Yeah.
So, and pollinating, pollination is key to growing a lot of fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
So pollinators everywhere. And then in the soil itself, it also attracts a lot of really good beneficial soil life. A lot of earthworms, a lot of different, creepy crawlies that go through the soil that some people are like, ew, but
Yeah.
gardeners don't understand
We love
that
them.
you love them. That aerates your soil,
Yeah.
and you don't have to till, right? Because tilling is terrible for your garden. It destroys a lot of the good bacteria, that good biome that makes your soil rich and healthy.
Mhm.
Um, so, just try not to till if at all possible. This
Right.
makes that possible. Um, and then the final thing that it attracts, that is my favorite, is spiders. Okay. Spiders are gardeners' absolute best friend because they eat all the pasties, all the nasties that eat your plants.
I
So
I heard you in the first interview I heard you on. You said that, and now I'm like noticing all the spiders in my garden. And I'm like, oh, I have spiders.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, spiders are great because they don't eat your fruits and vegetables. They eat the insects that eat your fruits and vegetables.
Yeah. I never even considered, like, I never got rid of them because I don't take my feathered, my cobweb duster to the pepper plants. But it's just like, oh, now I'm so excited that I have spiders out there.
Yes. So, you can have a bioregenerative garden. You can grow your food without pesticides, without chemicals. I mean, sure, you might get some squash borer. Use wood ash when you plant your squash to keep the squash borer away.
Mhm.
Which is just literally burning wood, putting the ash down.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. You might get you still might get some aphids or some ants, and you use coffee grounds or a little bit of Castile soap and baking soda and warm water and spray it on your plants, that kind of thing. Natural pesticides, natural things that are not going to add a whole bunch of chemicals into the things that you're putting into your body, because that's what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And in doing all of this and going all natural, it was really amazing. I lost almost 70 pounds. Like, I lost a small person, basically. So I had to buy all new clothes because nothing fit me anymore. So that was okay though. My husband as well. He has not had anything processed in over a year. Well, that's not quite true. Like, we'll go to my parents for dinner and he will literally get sick on the way home and he'll be like, your mom cooked something out of a box. Yeah, but I'm sorry. I'm sure she probably did. As much as I tell her, it doesn't always connect.
Yeah.
Um, like processed. If processed means if there's more than 4 ingredients or you can't pronounce anything on the box, don't eat it. Or if it comes in a box or a bag, don't eat it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And your husband now, all of his health issues are gone and he's
completely
completely
resolved.
healthy.
So he's completely healthy. His blood pressure is perfect. His anger is Irish, not unmanageable. His PTSD is completely under control. He actually regained the feeling in his foot that he lost for 18 years after
Oh
his
my
brain
gosh.
surgery.
Wow.
I mean, it's truly been miraculous. He's lost some weight too, but he's, he was always not, he was very muscular, but he never had any fat on him. But now we're proportionate again because, I weigh
Yeah.
less than he does. So that's good.
That is so amazing.
It is. I mean, it's truly, even my 11-year-old is like, Mom, I love it because I can eat less and stay fuller longer and everything tastes better.
Yeah.
So, and he's 11, and at 11, he hasn't gone into puberty yet, which we kind of expected because his brother had at that point. And we really wonder if, and I mean, he's a good sized kid. He's growing constantly. But my husband and I constantly ask, like, is his puberty cycle going back to the way it should be
Yeah.
without being bumped up from all of the chemicals and additives and all this just nasty stuff that they put in the food supply? Like,
Yeah.
his body's doing what it's supposed to do
Yeah.
instead of being rushed along by all of this chemical sludge that most people are consuming.
Right.
So it's fantastic.
Yeah.
We've never been happier. We're broke, we're food rich, we're cash poor. But and honestly, I'm not really helping myself with the electroculture. I mean, I am with the electroculture business, but my best friend who does the podcast with me on Saturdays, the Freedom Garden podcast, she at the same time has started is starting, she's got all the paperwork done for a bioregenerative nonprofit farm to help survivors of abuse. So all of the antennas, and we're doing both ventures together, all of the antennas that we make, the profits go to the farm so that we can buy land and actually get it going and have a refuge for people that just need a hand up, need to learn how to be self-sufficient, need a place to escape, whatever it is. So, so
Well,
that's
I love,
important to us.
I heard that story and I'm so excited that I could that I'll get to share your site with everybody. Cause as I'm doing my research into electroculture gardening, you hear all of these people that haven't even tried it yet, but are saying, oh, it's false. It's not working. Just follow the money. If they sell something, if they're trying to get you to buy their copper rod, then obviously it's not working. They just want to make money. And I'm like, if anybody had heard your story and how you're using your profits to go to this wonderful organization that's going to help these people in need, it's like, why wouldn't you want to support them? And they're not making a profit. And your site, it's such an affordable.
That's
the green thumb one. Is that the 12-inch one that goes in the little pots? Yeah.
It's $2, honestly.
Yeah. It's like, you're not even, it's probably not even covering the shipping.
Well, I mean, the shipping is separate. So,
okay.
Yeah. But,
which I mean, it should be because most people don't have access to copper. And so,
the shipping honestly usually is the most important or is the most expensive part of the purchase, to be honest. But I mean, it depends. Even the big, because I'll make them up to 7 feet tall. And a lot of people they're interested in the big tall ones because they want to put them in their garden, but they don't want to have to purchase, $50 worth of copper in order to put and where do you get a 7-foot tall piece of wood?
Yeah.
So I'm blessed that I have access to both of those things that I can help people out. My 7-foot antenna is $50.
Yeah. So,
yeah. And I think the shipping on it's like $20 or $25. So, shipping a 7-foot tall piece of wood isn't easy either.
Yeah. And one trip to the grocery store right now, you're lucky if you could get out of there in less than a couple $100.
Exactly. Yeah. No kidding. I went in the other day. I bought basically all I buy this at this point is like milk, cream, lemonade for my kid because my husband uses the limes in his beer generally. So, so I'm waiting on my lemons to finish going. My lemon trees are newer than my lime trees. So fruit trees take a couple of years to really start to produce. I'm very blessed that my lime tree is producing like this in year 2. My lemon trees are only 1 year old. So, so that while I have some lemons on them next year, they'll give me a lot. And when I put them in the ground, they'll blow up. Right now they're in pots.
Okay.
And I'm doing a little experiment with them. Like I have an electroculture antenna in one lemon tree and not in the other one. And they're in the same size pot and they're the same size tree, the same type of tree. So I can kind of track and see how that goes. I'm doing the same thing with coffee trees. It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's fantastic. But I went to the grocery store the other day. I bought milk and tea and I think flour and maybe a couple bags of chips because they were on sale and not much else. And it was like $100.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? This
Yeah.
is insane. How do people survive?
I know.
So the last thing I want to do is price people out of being able to grow an excess of your own food because that defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And then when you grow it yourself too, you appreciate it more because it's like you're growing it. It's fun to go out and grow things. I feel like people that haven't gardened yet, it's like you just have to do it because once you're in, then you're in for life. It's like
Absolutely.
it's just such a rewarding. Our son right now is 17 months old. And for the whole past month, every morning for like 3 hours, he now like is independent enough that he just kind of does his own thing. And he goes from like garden bed to garden bed and picks cherry tomatoes. And he goes to the grapevines and picks grapes. And then yet the other day I caught him like drinking out of the mister. Like it was just watering the plant and he was like getting his own drink. And it's awesome. He absolutely loves being out in the garden.
Yes.
And I love it because now I get to, spend more time out there and hang out with him too. So I'm curious, so if somebody has access to copper, so we have a whole like pile of just copper wire that we were just kind of like holding on to. And so I plan on we want to make some own for the garden. So what is the process of, okay, so I'll explain like my garden setup. So I have 6 to 8 like raised beds that are about like 4 to 8, like 4 foot by 8 foot. And then I have 4 long, like 100-foot rows where I have tomatoes and artichokes and just stuff that grows a lot bigger.
Yep.
So how should I go about, like, would you put one antenna in each garden box or would you put things around the perimeters? How does it work?
So I'd put one antenna in each raised bed.
Okay. Would you want to put it in the middle or you put it in a certain area?
Put it in the northernmost part.
Okay.
Bed. And some people say like, put it in the northernmost part of the bed, or put it in the northernmost part of your garden. And it kind of radiates back from there. All right. In your 100-foot rows, like for your tomatoes, I actually built trellises out of integrating electroculture antennas into them. Right. So, I made my trellises out of wood from my garden anyway. And while I wrapped them together with twine about every 10 to 15 feet, I'd put another electroculture antenna inside the trellis. Is just, instead of just a piece of wood, I just wrap it in the copper and stick it in there.
Yeah.
And my beans love it. Love it. Love it.
So we right now have T-posts, like we have like a line of T-posts and then with just regular, small gauge wire.
Yeah.
Would you could you wrap the copper around the T-post or should it always be around wood?
Around wood. Has to be around wood.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Could you put the wood next to like I could put the wood with the copper wire next to the T-post?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, I have a bunch of them like that because the trellises made out of light wood don't stand up that well. So I actually, I secure them with T-posts at either end. So yeah, that's not an issue.
Yeah. Cool. And then how, I guess, so like for that row of tomatoes, how tall would you want the wire to go? Like, does it matter how tall it is or is taller better?
Yes, the taller the better.
Okay.
Because your tomatoes are going to grow really tall. So you want to have support for them as well. I think I made my trellises like 15 feet tall and my tomatoes are getting, the few tomato plants that survived the insane heat are getting to the close to the top of those trellises.
Wow.
Yeah. Because your tomatoes are a fruit tree. Like that's what people don't always take into consideration. Like tomatoes are a fruit. They're not a vegetable. They grow on a tree, and if you take care of them, you can actually keep that tomato tree going around for years. Like indeterminate tomatoes will literally grow forever. So,
wow.
Yeah. It's a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess and then how far so you mentioned that you have like 20 or do you have 2 20 by 20 foot areas? That's your garden?
Yeah.
And so do you, like if you had just one antenna, does that cover one 20-foot bed, or you have a few worked out throughout your garden?
So in the front gardens, I do the Fibonacci sequence. So I have 9 antennas in those gardens, plus some extra here and there, really as like trellis supports and things like that. But in the back garden, I have one big antenna and that covers my entire area. So they generally say like, with a 7-foot antenna, I say bury it a foot deep, just both for stability. But with the other antennas, really 6 inches is fine. You know,
Okay.
you put it in a container, 3 to 6 inches is fine. Really not a big deal. Depending on how deep the container is. And I even engrave a line, a marking on the antenna to let you know, where we recommend putting it into the container. But I mean, they say 6 feet above covers about 15 feet going out almost like in a cone from that antenna.
Okay.
Okay. So, I mean, you can also put them almost in a zigzag. So like if you drew out that triangle area from the front of that antenna and then put antennas on the other ones and you do them that way, depending on how big your garden is, that works too. So to cover the whole
Okay.
thing. Yeah.
Cool. Wow. I'm like so excited to try this. So explain the Fibonacci sequence. I know you said that that's how your garden is set up. So I know there's like the copper wire that goes around the wood, but then you actually have a sequence in your garden of how your antennas are set up, correct?
Yes. So the Fibonacci sequence it's a spiral. And it's a mathematical sequence. So
Okay.
people know the Fibonacci sequence as a mathematical, series of numbers. But if you lay them out in a grid pattern, then you can run a spiral around them. And it's a mathematically perfect spiral. It's what they call sacred geometry. So even the antennas that are spiraled around, technically, that is considered a Fibonacci spiral, a Fibonacci sequence. But when you do it so that they're all like that and then connected with the copper wire on the top, then it just amplifies everything like the crop circles. So it makes everything grow even bigger and better.
Okay.
And makes everything even more drought resistant and pest resistant. And just like it amplifies all of that energy because you're integrating sacred geometry,
Yeah.
God's geometry, with electroculture, and your plants love it.
Yeah. If the way that somebody's garden layout doesn't allow them to like connect all of the like physically connect all of the antennas with a wire, would it still be beneficial? Like just setting those antennas in that sequence?
I would think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can scale it down, like instead of doing it by 1 foot by 1 foot, you could do it by, a half a foot by half a foot. Like you can cut everything in half as long as the proportions are the same.
Right.
It doesn't really matter as long as it comes out in the spiral. So,
Okay. Yeah. And I
but
guess even if you had like just a smaller area, so you're saying like a smaller area in your garden where you could make that happen, that's
yeah,
still going to amplify outwards.
exactly.
Okay. That is really cool.
I mean, even if
Um,
you look at, as I've been working with wood and making these antennas and I strip, because I have all this land to take care of anyway. So I'm constantly cutting down saplings and, small trees and things like that,
mhm.
and cutting the branches off them to dry them so that there'll be future antennas. But as you trim the branches off of them, or you look at your plants, everything grows in a spiral, right?
Yeah.
All of the leaves on your plants, they all grow in a spiral. And when you get the antennas, you'll see where I sand down the nubs, and y'all don't have to go through the process that I go through to make the antennas. It's unnecessary I just do it because I'm selling it and I should put some work into it. Right.
Mhm.
Um, but you'll see they'll be in a spiral because
Mhm.
that's how they come up. Or when plants bud, they come up in a spiral. That's
Yeah.
for geometry. So
Yeah.
we're just using what God gave us to make everything grow bigger.
Yeah. And I love, so you were mentioning a little bit ago how it helps the soil, like it attracts all the beneficial microbes and everything into the soil. When
Mhm.
you stick this antenna or, electroculture rod into your soil, how long before you start seeing improvements in your soil?
I mean, it's pretty quick, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm actually building over the next couple of weeks, I'll be building a new electroculture garden.
Mhm.
Because I'm getting a new fence and expanding out my yard, my chicken yard anyway.
Nice.
So but I'm doing it as a winter garden. I'm not going to
Okay.
plant anything in it yet. I'm going to do a cover crop, but I'm going to build out my structure. And I want to see, because I've heard that if you do that and you leave it over the winter, it improves your soil so much that come the spring, you can literally just throw seeds in the ground and have it go.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, well, that's great because it's not the greatest soil over there where I'm putting it. I'll throw some compost down on it,
Mhm.
and let the chickens go through it and stuff. But, because I generally let the chickens make my compost. I throw all my leaf clippings and stuff in the enclosure. And then every 6 months or so, I dig it out and that's my compost. It works
Nice.
great. But, I'll throw some of that on there and some pine straw over it, and then I'll just leave it. And I'm thinking in the spring, I'm going to have a pretty amazing soil
Yeah.
base for my garden there. But when I started using the Electroculture in my gardens, I built my gardens in February. I planted as soon as I was done building. By the first week in March, I was planting.
Mhm.
And by St. Patrick's Day, I was already seeing things starting to flower.
Wow.
So, and I was like, I was kind of worried because I was afraid we were going to get a late frost. And I was like, I got flowers on stuff. I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, pull out the sheets. Like I need a like pull out the extra sheets so I can throw things over this for that, that
Yeah.
last frost of the season. Cause I did not expect that. And I had overwintered my peppers in pots. I don't know if you can overwinter peppers if you cut them all the way back down to right where the Y is on the pepper.
Mhm.
Um, and you can bring them inside or outside. You can put them, put a cover over them, but your peppers will survive. So all my peppers had been in pots, and I took them and I put them in the garden. So they were all, maybe not even a foot tall because I cut them all the way down.
Yeah.
And now my green peppers are 5.5 to 6 feet tall. My poblano peppers are 6 feet tall. Like
Yeah.
everything in my garden is taller than I am.
So I'm only 5'2", and I told my husband I could grow a 14-foot okra plant, and he goes, "Why would you do that? You're going to have ladders out there." And I'm like, "Well, if I can grow a 14-foot okra plant, like why not?" And
um, the
anyways.
cool thing is that okra specifically, okra does better if you beat it up a little bit, right? I don't know if you know that, but you're supposed to beat your okra, like just kind of knock the stalks around, right? It
Yeah,
makes them
I did not
stronger.
know that.
Yeah, it makes them stronger. So you beat your
Okay.
so you can actually, when it gets that tall, the stalks are so strong that I can basically pull mine down and
Oh,
without them breaking, right? They're
yeah.
flexible enough that I can pull them. I mean, I have to walk out a ways,
Yeah.
but I can pull it down and harvest the okra, and it snaps right back up. And I'm still beating my okra.
Yeah.
But then I did have about half the okra. I was like, all right, this is getting a little ridiculous. They were so tall, they were shading out everything else. So I cut them in half because I had heard that you can, what they call, top your okra, and
Okay.
some of it would come back,
Okay.
right? Like 1 out of 3 plants would come back. And I was like, I mean, okay, I'll try it. So I topped about half my 3/4 of my okra plants now. And 3 out of 4 came back. Like I had significant growth. I've
Oh,
new
nice.
growth at the bottom of my okra plant. So I'm getting a whole second crop of okra.
Oh,
So yeah,
that's good
with
to know, because mine, I have some right now that are actually pretty tall, but they're not that healthy. So I wonder if actually like cutting them back, see what
yeah,
see what happens.
yep.
Um, okay. And I guess my last question for everybody, or for people to get started with this, is if they don't want to build it themselves, where can they go to get your copper rods?
Sure. Yeah, go to electrofreedom.com,
Okay. And I'll make
electrofreedom.com.
sure I link that in the description.
Okay.
And then do you have a recommendation on which ones, like if they're just a backyard home gardener and they don't have that much space, which ones should they purchase, or would any of them work for a backyard?
So I actually have them in different collections on the website. So I have the container collection, the raised bed collection, and the in-ground collection. And it, lets you know what I kind of laid it out, what size is sufficient for what. And some of them will cross over, like some of the larger raised bed ones will also work in an in-ground one, and same thing. Some of the larger container ones will also work in a raised bed. But for the most part, you know, if you have a good sized garden, just remember bigger is better with electroculture. The higher you can get it up, then the more energy you're drawing from higher in the atmosphere with less competition, as it were. Right. So bigger is better in an in-ground garden.
Okay.
Even if, you know, even if it's just a small one. Same thing in a raised bed, you know. I do have one in there, the 42-inch one, but I named it the Yankee, and I think I have to change the name because no one likes it. I'm sorry. I'm a Yankee at heart. I'm from New York originally, and I moved to the deep South. So like, I'm like, man, that kind of breaks my heart. But anyway, but like a 42-inch antenna, you know, is great for a large raised bed or a small in-ground garden.
Okay.
You know, that's a good crossover one. So
yeah. Cool.
yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited for everybody to watch this because I have been blown away by this technique and can't wait to get going with it. And so everybody that's watching this, you need to get going with your electroculture gardening.
Yes. And you can use promo code GROW.
Okay. I will make sure I link that for everybody below. GROW.
And save $5 off your first order of $25 or more.
Nice. So, perfect. Well, everybody go check out the electrofreedom.com and get your garden to its next level.
Yes. Yes. It's so important. And I'm going to be adding other things on there because I basically just did a soft launch. And I'm doing a bigger one coming up here as we expand our inventory. So I will be offering bigger packages where you can get, you know, basically the sacred geometry package where you can get 9 antennas of various you know, one size, 5 foot, 6 foot, 7 foot, detailed instructions on how to lay it out in the Fibonacci sequence, the extra copper wire to run on the top and grid the bottom out, and a couple video calls with me. So, you know, if you have questions or whatnot. So I'll be putting up big packages. Right now, the most expensive thing on the website is $50. That's for the largest single antenna. Of course, the packages will, you know, because it'll be a combination. Those will be significantly more, but all the promo codes will still work on all of those too. Cool. I'm building teepee pyramids and things with coils on the top, like fun things too, as we expand out. So because I love it. It's a blast. It's a lot of fun. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much.
That's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you.